Hello, Sioux Falls. Thanks for watching Planning Preview for the month of February 2022. Today I'm joined with Jason Bieber with the City of Sioux Falls. How are you doing, Jason?
Doing good.
Thanks for joining us today. Turn the page. We're well into the back half of January here, and we've had some great agenda items, and we'll get to those in a minute, but wanted to note the new set for everybody here to watch, and kind of a cool new vibe here for Planning Preview. Other than that, this last month we got through a couple of conditional use permits for the marijuana applications. I know those are always exciting and people like hearing about those. How'd that process work?
Worked pretty well. You know, they were approved unanimously by the Planning Commission at the Planning Commission meeting. Really, the two that were required to get conditional uses were quite a ways separated from the sensitive land use, and really had some pretty large arterial streets and one an interstate that was separated. So really in more of our commercial areas where we would like to see them. So went pretty well, and didn't have any appeals to the city council, so they'll kind of move forward with the licensing process.
Very good. I think a lot of people on both sides said we want this to be similar to the alcohol process, and now having done it, it really seemed like it was very similar to me.
Yep, so. It was good.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get into the agenda items for the month of February here. The first one is a rezone from agricultural district to single-family residential suburban, townhome residential suburban, apartment residential low density, apartment residential high density, and C4 commercial. That's at south of West Benson Road and east of North Marion Road. Looks like it's by Clint Ackerman. Tell us about this project.
Yeah, so this is kind of one of these big subdivisions that we just recently annexed into the city, kind of north of Jefferson High School, really that point that we're seeing a lot of development between Jefferson and then obviously up Foundation Park with Amazon getting almost completed. So this is another large subdivision, and then later on the agenda for our Planning Commission meeting, we'll also have the preliminary subdivision plan going forward, but just kind of one of those quarter sections of land or sections of land where we have the commercial at the first access point, the large apartment complex or larger apartment complexes kind of situated on Benson and Marion Road, and then kind of transitioning to single family, and then our twin homes, and then to single family. So kind of what we like to see in there.
Okay, yeah, and definitely sounds like a big one. It's got a little bit of everything almost from a use perspective there. So very good. Let's move on to our next item. It's a rezone from RS Single Family Residential Suburban District. That's going over to the RT2 Townhome Residential Traditional District. That's located at 501 South Holly Avenue. So kind of by 12th and Western or so?
Yeah. Yep. This is kind of a case of a property owner that kind of purchased a home that was a little bit dilapidated, kind of one of those not the best looking house on the block. And so he's looking at tearing it down and then trying to get kind of a twin home or duplex on that lot, give us a little bit more units out there as we're looking for a little bit more of accessible housing. From a city perspective, we like to see that. We just want to make sure that we're going to have enough setbacks. You know, we don't like to have cars parked over the sidewalk, and so when we looked at this one, we wanted to get a concept plan and make sure that we're going to get that enough parking, a long enough driveway so we don't run into those issues.
Okay, sure, yeah, and those are always good ones to have at the Planning Commission, because you never know, there might be concerns from other people, the residential area, and it's good to take a look at those and have those discussions. So. We've got another big one on the list after this. It's a rezone from agricultural, C3, community commercial, conservation, live work. That's going over to single family residential suburban, twin home duplex residential suburban, townhome residential suburban, apartment residential low density, live work, commercial, and some conservation district. That's at north of East Madison Street, east of Veterans Parkway. So up in the northeast part of town?
Yep, so this is kind of just east of Veterans Parkway, where we had on the west side a couple months ago, we had the announcement of the Sanford Clinic with the Lewis. So this is kind of the opposite side. So when you start getting those services, you start getting more property, more rooftops that are going to start being constructed. Another large subdivision with a preliminary plan that's on later on in the agenda, but really a similar development. commercial on the major intersection, Madison and Veterans Parkway, and then you kind of start transitioning to some twin home townhomes, and then some single family in there. So really a lot more rooftops and a lot more residents in the Brandon School District up in that area.
Sure,
so.
yeah, and preliminary subdivision plan, I would imagine, with this one as well? Okay.
Yep, so those are, that's kind of what we say. It's kind of interesting because usually February is one of our slower months, and we've got a lot of applications, but that's 2 really big subdivisions that we're going to have going.
Yeah.
So a lot of lots that will be coming online this year. So.
Yeah, and fun to see development along this northern stretch of Veterans Parkway there. Such an investment to get that project done, that road done. Now it's awesome to see some of the things that are following it.
And it's great too. The last one we talked about, that was in the northwest section of the city. This one's in the northeast. Typically we're talking about southwest part of the city or southeast or east part of the city.
Yeah.
So we're kind of growing on all ends now, which is good. So
yeah, awesome to see. Next up on our list is a rezone from the RA2 residential apartment moderate density district. That's going over to the RA3 apartment residential high density district. So from moderate density up to high density, that's at 3511 South Gateway Boulevard. So I-29 and 41st Street?
Yeah, kind of south of 41st Street there. So this is an existing apartment complex. It was built as a senior living facility. Okay. So senior apartments. They had kind of a pretty big community room, which you like with 55 and older kind of multifamily, they like to gather and that kind of stuff. So the applicant here, excuse me, what they're really looking to do is to take some of that common area and actually construct 4 more units in there. So the building's not getting any bigger. It's just kind of taking some of that stuff that maybe is not being utilized anymore now that they're going over to kind of market rate and anybody can live there. But that kind of pushes it above that 48 units, and that's why we need to rezone it. And then they'll have to provide some additional parking. With senior apartments, the parking's a little bit reduced when you go to anybody,
Makes sense for people driving, I would imagine.
Usually have, if it's a 2-bedroom, you're going to have probably 2 cars instead of 1 car for a 2-bedroom. So we'll provide a little bit more parking, but getting some more units in an area that's already there. So.
Okay. Jason, next on the list, we've got a few initial development plan amendments. Before we get into the specific ones, let's talk about what an amendment to initial development plan is.
Yep. So really, with these large campus type uses or some commercial uses, like Lake Lorraine's a commercial example of a pedestrian PUD. But the ones we're going to see coming forward are really our large campus uses. So Sanford Health main campus, that's a planned unit development. We're going to have the sports complex up north, another planned unit development, and then Augustana. And really, what we look for those initial development plans is give us an overview of your entire campus area, right?
Sure.
Show us where you think current buildings are and future buildings are, where your parking's going to be, so we can do a good job of planning it and really utilize parking between different uses, right? You don't have to have, if you build a residence hall or if you build, a science lab, maybe there's extra parking over here so you can kind of cross-use parking.
Okay.
So we're going to be doing those, and then obviously after things kind of move here and there, Sanford kind of goes down the line, maybe they decide that they need to add a couple more buildings or things change. We like to have those come back and then kind of update them as you go forward, and really gives you guys a chance to continue to look at them, have them continue to engage the neighborhood, but really just keep kind of giving us an idea of what are they doing out there, what's their future plan.
Yeah, so I know not the exact same, but kind of similar to the subdivision plan process. Here's kind of the way the connectivity is, but just for a defined specific area when it makes sense, like these.
And it gives us the chance too. We obviously don't want the Heart Hospital or the Sanford, Heart Hospital that's 6-7 stories right next to a single family house. So it gives us a chance to make sure that they're meeting those transitions within the core area of the city, and not not putting things that maybe don't work on the outskirts of the actual campus.
And great to see it go through the public input process.
Yes.
So you're making changes, come to us and give people the opportunity to speak to them too.
Absolutely.
So let's go ahead and go through the 3 of these real quick. An initial development plan for amendment for the Sanford Health main campus PUD. That's located at 1305 West 18th Street. So what are they doing here?
So here, just kind of updating a little bit of their parking. They're adding adding some additional parking kind of south of the Imaginetics building. And then really the big thing with this is they tore down, I think, is it the Medical Building 4 right on Grange and north of 22nd Street. And so they're looking to put a new building back in there, and they want to go a little bit higher than they originally had put on there. So really kind of building up, which is great in that area because that's all surrounded by Sanford buildings and Sanford parking lots. So we're not having to get those right next to existing residential kind of in that area of the city.
Okay, and then the next one's going to stay with Sanford, but it's up at the sports complex. That's an initial development plan amendment as well. 2300 West Benson Road.
Yeah, so this is an area, you know, we've seen them do a bunch of these amendments up there, which has been great, and it's not bad things. It's always been because they got something new that they didn't plan on. You know, we had great shots, and now we have the little league fields or baseball fields, softball fields up there, soccer fields, and now this is actually going a little bit southwest of that, so a little ways south of Fleet Farm, where they're adding two new large medical buildings going to be on their offices, which is another great use to get that whole area. You know, getting more people up there will drive more restaurants and things like that up there. So
okay, let's stick with initial development plans, but let's move over to the Augustana University campus PUD. That's located at 2001 South Summit Avenue. What's Augie got going on here?
So this is there, as we announced about a year ago, they're looking to add a hockey program with Augustana University. So this is the PUD to add that new arena that they're looking to build. And that's going to be right at the southeast corner of 33rd and Grange, just east of the Almond Center there. So kind of gives them, you know, everything south of 33rd seems like their big sports area that they've done, and they've added a lot of cool things. The stadium that they have, they're working on the baseball fields. They got the Elman Center, they have the hockey rink, they have the track and a bunch of soccer fields. So it's kind of a cool little athletic area that they've had made for their campus, and really to keep it on the campus, you know.
Yeah, well, what an awesome opportunity. You're talking to an Augie guy and you're talking to a hockey guy, so I'm just mildly excited for that one.
So then you'll get season tickets then, right?
I hope so. We'll work on that. We'll work on that. But thanks for joining us, Jason. Appreciate it. And thanks for watching our agenda items. Reminder, February 2nd, 6 p.m. at Carnegie Town Hall. We'll be voting on those agenda items. So if you have any input you'd like to provide on those items, please come down and provide that input for us to hear. Please stick around after the break. We're going to hear from Butch Warrington with the City of Sioux Falls Building Services.
Hi, my name is Brent, and I'm a housing specialist for the City of Sioux Falls, and I'm out here with Kelly, Property Maintenance Manager for the city. We're out here on this snowy day, and we're here to talk about sidewalks. So Kelly, why do we need to clean the sidewalks?
Well, many people use the sidewalks for transportation, kids getting to school. You know, some people, you know, elderly, disabled, or for whatever reason, they go to grocery stores or to work, they need a safe place to travel as well.
So we use about 2 feet of space. Do we only need to scoop a path, or do we have to go side to side?
Go the entire width of the sidewalk, edge to edge, and that way it's, you know, ADA accessible for those in wheelchairs.
Okay. Today, I don't know if we're going to get 2 inches of snow, but do we have to wait till 2 inches, or do you have to start scooping right away?
No, you have to clear your sidewalk after any snow or ice event, and that's, you know, within 48 hours after that event, we need that cleared off.
Well, thanks, Kelly. Well, if you're out scooping your snow and you see that your neighbor's house needs sidewalks scooped as well, do the neighborly thing and help your neighbor out.
If you'd like to see if one of our city programs can help you out, call 367-8180 or check us out online at siouxfalls.org.
Welcome back from the break, Sioux Falls. Thank you for sticking with us. As promised, we're joined by Butch Warrington, Chief Building Official with the City of Sioux Falls. How are you doing today, Butch?
I'm doing real well. A little chilly out there today, but We'll make through.
It's a cold one, but we're due this time of year. So thanks for joining us. We get to talk about one of my favorite topics today, which is all the great numbers that we had for 2021 in the city of Sioux Falls. So you're the guy when it comes to those numbers. So why don't you go ahead and tell us just what we accomplished in the whole for 2021.
It was an absolute incredible year. We went past the 1 billion mark, and we went all the way to 1.1 billion this year. And considering last year was only like 919 million, that's a big jump. That's about a 20% jump. But what's really exciting to me is it was a 43% jump over 2 years ago, because we hadn't quite made that 800 million mark at that time. So that's a big jump in 2 years.
Yeah, imagine you go back 2 years ago, and obviously nobody predicted COVID, but either way, that kind of growth probably wasn't expected to hit a billion this year. Maybe it was.
You know, at the beginning of the year, I thought maybe there's a stretch we could make it, but I was just going to be happy at 950 million just to break last year's record. But as the year went on, we could see it was probably going to happen. And you know, it's really quite exciting because it is the first time ever.
Yeah, it is. And before we kind of dive deeper into that number and break it down a little bit, let's go ahead and just explain for the viewers what goes into that number. So every building permit that comes through the city, but that can be a lot of different things. So what different kind of projects are we talking about there?
That is every project from a shed to a lower level finish for a home, to a deck of any kind. Those are some of the smaller projects, up to the larger projects, which is, of course, our Amazon last year, but oddly enough, this year, it was the tenant build out for the Amazon project, which was the highest one at about $60 million. And that is all the conveyors and all the equipment that gets installed, because they're permanent objects. We get to permit those. So, and everything in between. You know, we had the couple of schools that we did some work on, and the Sioux Falls Public Training Center. We issued part of that this year. So there's a lot of things that go into it, and 850 single-family dwelling units too.
Okay, yeah, and I think it's amazing to me. Yes, that's 60 million. That's a big one. But we go back, and it's not quite as big as it some of the years past. The year before, I think we were talking about before the program, was the big Amazon one, which was how much?
Right. That was about, I think it was 217 million or 219, in that area someplace.
Okay, so to be able to get to $1 billion with all these projects included, that's a pretty impressive number.
It really is, because there wasn't anything that was huge, but we had a lot of really nice sized projects.
Okay. Talk to me about what it takes for your staff to process these large numbers. You know, we love to see it in town. It's awesome, right? But somebody's got to go out to these projects and work on these permits and everything else, right?
That is correct. We have a set of 4 plans examiners. We just hired a 5th last month, so he's still getting trained, but they look at every plan that goes out, every permit that gets issued. They have to look at it to see if everything is code compliant on it, and that's what takes time, you know, because the codes are only books that are maybe 2.5 inches thick. So there's a lot of knowledge there you got to have.
It's a lot of specialty knowledge, and you guys do it so well, and usually pretty fast. About how long? I mean, I'm sure it's different for a $60 million project than a $60,000 project, but about how long does that process take?
You know, it all depends on the project. You know, if you go to a hospital, that's going to take a lot of things, because there's a lot of different fire resistivities. But this year, probably what really hit us hard was all the apartments, because apartments are very specific on fire resistivities, because there's a lot of people in them. They need to get out in a fire occasion or any emergency. Doesn't necessarily have to be fire, but it takes a lot of time and to go through all of those type of things. So that's really a lot of our time was on apartments this year.
Sure, and while we're talking about apartments, let's talk about what we did for numbers in that sector. I know a phenomenal year of building apartments. It seems like we can't build them fast enough in town right now. So what did we get for apartment numbers this last year? and we think that's going to keep going up in 2022.
I don't know if we'll surpass that number, but I can tell you we're still seeing a lot of apartments coming in.
Okay.
But the number was 1,821. That's dwelling units in apartments.
Wow.
And that was a record year.
Okay.
And the thing is, we didn't have a record on single family dwelling units because that was only 850. However, back in the early 2000s, that number was probably about 1,000 or a little better. That's why they weren't a record breaker this year. But at that same time, there were very few townhomes that were issued. Now townhomes are a big thing. We issued, I think it's 457 of those. So when you combine the single family and the townhomes, we actually set a really nice record there.
Yeah, so we've kind of maybe just changed the way we live a little bit. Some people anyway moved over from that single family home into that townhome, it sounds like.
Yes.
Was that townhome number? This is an unfair question off the top of my head. Do you know if was that a record on the townhome one?
That town number was a record. That was 457 units. Never gotten close to that before, so it was a number. What's amazing is when you total up the townhomes, the single family, the apartment dwelling unit numbers, and the duplexes, we went up to 3,024 total units. And last year we set a record at 2,717. So that's a big number. That's a big increase of about 500 units.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's also amazing that we still need more of these units in Sioux Falls. I think everybody would agree we still have a housing struggle here. So I think we look ahead a year and I think we're still pushing these numbers up, right?
I think so, because I did listen to a gentleman talk the other day, and they said they were at 98.5% capacity, and they said that it's even hard to maintain them at that. So they'd like to see that number down just a little bit.
Okay, and when you talk with these people, Butch, these people, contractors in the industry, do we still have supply issues? I would imagine, is it just a change in different month, different material we're struggling to get, or how's that looking?
It is. I hear a lot about supply issues, and we've had to make some concessions when it comes to issuing occupancy. You know, when it comes to life safety, we can't back down on those, but not always there's all the doors installed. You know, a door to a bedroom is not required. It's probably desired, but it's not required. So there's some things like that we've had to give in on a little bit before, so we give them temporary occupancy.
Sure, sure, understood. Let's move over to the commercial world a little bit. We talked quite a bit about residential, but what are things looking like for commercial numbers in 2021?
You know, as of right now, what we see on the books, it's going to be a good year. I would guess we'll be close to where we were this year. I don't know. I would guess maybe $1 billion, maybe not more than 1.1, because you never know what's going to happen in the second half of the year, because I haven't seen any of that stuff yet. Sure. But talking to a lot of the architects, engineers, and developers, I think it's going to be a real good year. You know, we haven't issued any permits to speak of over at the Schrappa site yet, and we still got some Sioux Steel stuff to go in, so I think it's going to be a good year. Yeah, yeah.
And then let's go ahead and hit on industrial. Always can fluctuate a lot with a big project. Anything new we know about in 22 coming down?
You know, I haven't heard of anything specific that's coming. I've heard rumblings of a few things, but until the plans are actually submitted, I really don't like to say anything, because you never know if they're actually going to come in or not.
That's true. Until that permit gets pulled, I suppose you're right on that one.
Yep.
So. How about, Butch, different sectors of town? It's always kind of fun to see regionally, as we grow, we kind of talk more about southwest, east, north kind of deal. Any trends you're seeing there? Any really hot areas of town right now?
Right now, it seems like we're going all over the place a little bit, but I've heard that they're starting to run out of land for sewer abilities, so it might change here in the next year or two.
Sure, I know we got a lot of work to do on that too, and they've thought about those processes, and you got to have that sewer system in order to build, so that's the starting point.
Yep.
So, hey, thanks for joining us today, Butch. Appreciate it. Thank you to your team for all the work that you guys did in 21 with that awesome number. So,
you bet.
Appreciate it.
Have a great day.
And thanks for watching Sioux Falls. As mentioned, February 2nd, 2022 is our Planning Commission meeting for the month of February. We'd love to have you down at Carnegie Town Hall at 6 p.m. We'd love to hear your public input on the agenda items that we discussed, as well as non-agenda items. Have a great day.